Hallspace Podcast. It's about connections. I'm your host, Dr. Ritch Hall, and this is a weekly conversation about whatever and however I see to connect things. For people who want to connect, chat, and learn a thing or two about a thing or two. Without further ado, let's start the show. It was
a movie. It was really good.
It was.
Listen, I didn't fall asleep on it. That's a big deal because I was mad tired.
Yeah. Say that part again.
I said I watched the entire movie, Judas and the Messiah, and that's a big deal because I was mad tired.
Yes, Judas and the Black Messiah.
Judas and the Black Messiah.
Amazing film.
It was absolutely an amazing film.
Very moving. Very get you in your feels.
It absolutely gets you in your feels. And, let's talk about who's in it. It's
Lakeith Stanfield.
Lakeith Stanfield. I think he's so handsome.
He is. He's an amazing actor.
He is. Listen, he is brilliant. And we first saw him in Atlanta.
Yes. Atlanta was kind of what introduced him to the world.
Yes.
As a figure. You're like, oh, this very esoteric.
Yeah, he was
kind of figure.
He was an interesting actor in the way that he was able to be weird and interesting and funny, and it's really hard to do all of that
and be compelling and not just be strange.
Exactly. So I'm a big fan of Lakeith Stanfield. He talked about Kamala Harris's hair. Mm-hmm. We canceled him for a little bit about that, but I didn't even know that happened. I didn't
absolutely
cancel him. He was like, all I said was I didn't like her hair, and we like, you can't say you don't like Kamala's hair.
Wow.
Boom.
Wow. See, cancel culture. What I'm talking about. Daniel Kaluuya is in it. So this is their reunion after doing Get Out together. Get Out was an amazing film.
Get Out was amazing, but he's Jordan also Peele's going to be the part of the border tribe.
Oh yeah,
in Black Panther.
Daniel Kaluuya was also in Black Panther.
Yes, he is the leader of the border tribe. Okay,
leader of the border tribe.
All right.
Also including Jesse Plemons and Dominique Fishback. Dominique Fishback was in.
She's beautiful.
She is.
She was in Deuces.
Yes, she was one of the prostitutes.
She was. Deuces. And she was brilliant in that role.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And she is.
She was also in Project Power, which I forgot about. Like, oh, that's right.
I didn't see her in Project Power, but
she was the kid. She was the girl.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yep.
But honestly, like
Robin.
That's right.
Yep.
But she is just beautiful.
Yes.
I like to see her on the screen, and she is compelling. Much in the same way that David and Lakeith are.
Yeah, she was great.
Big fan.
She was great.
Big fan of her. She's beautiful.
Yes. So really great film.
Yes.
It's a biopic about Fred Hampton.
Yep.
Of the Black Panthers.
Yep.
Featuring
Chicago.
In Chicago, featuring it's going to be a tragic story when it opens.
You know how it
ends. You know how Fred Hampton's life ended tragically when the police shot him in his bed.
And maybe they don't know how.
Not everybody knows because not everybody knows the story of the Black Panthers. Maybe didn't read any of the stories that we read. But Fred Hampton was a galvanizing figure.
He was
in Chicago. One of the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers have traditionally always been treated like a farce in Hollywood. Always treated like militant, angry people. But and I didn't even know this as I was growing up and learning in college. Like, oh wait, they had breakfast programs.
They did,
and they had job training programs.
And this movie was important in displaying all of that.
Yes, to display the multifacets of the group itself, and that they were dealing with an oppressive United States that was just allowing Black people to live in abject poverty. And rather than just let that be, they instead tried to fight back.
Ways to fight back against it.
They were constantly being harassed by the police.
So they
were arming themselves because of these corrupt systems.
Right. And so a lot of the things that they put in place, which I think is very important to add, you started with, was the free breakfast programs, the tutoring.
Yeah.
A lot of it was aimed at making sure that these children had places to be, that he had food, and that they had somewhere place warm and to be, and I think in addition to that, they were fighting against the Chicago police sort of constantly harassing them for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah, petty crimes and misdemeanors, and always sort of finding a reason to essentially, terrorize the Black community.
I mean, the biggest thing that, one of the things that I didn't always know was how Fred Hampton was so captivating. Yeah. Captivating. Sorry. Yeah. He went to all of the different.
He was able to unite a lot of different groups.
Yeah.
The Latinos, the Puerto Ricans, the whites, the poor whites,
white people. Yeah.
The idea that poverty can unite people.
Yes.
And that's one of those things that, you hear conspiracy theorists often talk in terms of they don't want us to all get together because we outnumber them. So there's often the divide and conquer strategy still works to this day. Like it's hard to get everybody on the same page because, we all get caught up in our agendas, and it's very difficult for us to just stop and go, wait a minute. If we're fighting amongst ourselves, then we're not fighting the status quo.
Against
which would grind us under its feet.
Oppressing us.
Yes.
And that's what made him so dangerous.
That's what made him very dangerous. Yep. And, Hoover, J. Edgar Hoover was very good at systemically dismantling these movements. Yep. Basically, essentially killing them in their beds because he saw a danger. Yeah, he saw a danger in them rising to any real level. And that there has been essentially a campaign against the Black Panthers to make them look like an ineffectual force, to make them look
dangerous,
angry
Black folks to shoot up stuff. And that's not what they were doing.
And I think there's so many parallels to the way the Black Lives Matter movement has been treated, where some of the same tactics of discrediting them, of making them look like, all this stuff around Antifa, this belief that there is this unified force that is trying to destroy America. The same thing was being done to the Panthers. A lot of propaganda, a lot of, just showing them in this light that would make America afraid of them, and using that fight against narrative. Them to, essentially delegitimize the movement.
I think the interesting thing about that is that you're fed this narrative about
them being angry, wanting to destroy America. When in reality, all they wanted to do was just to be free of oppression,
really just
to have a little bit of this dream that they knew was happening without them.
It's something that we've talked about on this show all of first season. We just want to be seen human.
Right.
We just want to be seen as human. And we want to be, if at the very minimum, left alone.
Right.
Left alone.
Right.
I mean, we watched this movie.
Left alone and allowed to flourish, not like abandoned. Because a lot of times when it comes to Black America, they've been abandoned.
And they're okay with that.
It's like, hey, we brought you to this country and we made you, we made you slaves. And
but get out of here.
We enslaved you as a people. And now we just don't want to be, I remember in history
with the responsibility,
reading about how there were full on arguments in Congress about what are we supposed to do about this Negro problem? Like, we have them here. Can we just put them on a boat and ship them all back? Well, there's too many of them. That's too much of an expenditure.
You brought us here.
Right. A tacit unwillingness for the entire span of the 400 years of this country.
Well, now that we
an unwillingness to acknowledge the humanity.
Yeah.
And what do we even do with this problem we created?
Right.
Well, we'll just make them a problem amongst themselves, and we'll ignore them and avoid them.
Why are we considered a problem as opposed
because it's an inconvenience.
Humans?
And that's one of the things that really, like, as I watched this, I kept thinking in terms of what if, rather than seeing Black people, minorities, Latinos, all these people as enemies, what if as America, we actually for a second stopped and said, we need all these people to advance.
To make America great. For real.
For real great.
For real great.
Rather than these people are a threat to
not for great for a
whiteness.
Percentage, but great for everybody involved.
Right.
Because honestly, if you're speaking about all of the immigrants.
What would America be if whiteness got out the way?
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. If
America genuinely invested in all of its people.
Yeah.
With any sort of equality.
Yeah.
How much more
and when we say
could it be as a country?
We mean quote unquote whiteness.
I mean the whiteness they created to oppress Black people.
No. There's a whiteness that was created to oppress us, right? But when you really get down to the nitty gritty of it, are you German? Are you French? Right.
Nobody. They don't want to. So when they got here originally, they had all those different designations, and slowly but surely they absorbed them all into whiteness.
No.
And then
now
they don't even know. White people barely know their heritage.
But that's not true. That's not true.
A majority of white people barely know what their heritage is.
They don't know, but they have the ability to figure that out
if they invest
in ways
in it
that we aren't.
Well, because there was a financial interest in not necessarily knowing where we came from.
Right.
It was just inefficient to know was this slave from Cameroon, or were they from Uganda, or were they from Nigeria? Just that they're a black person who I'm going to make work for me. They're barely a person.
Yeah. I mean that's.
And so this idea that they only wanted freedom, right? The Black Panthers only wanted freedom from oppression.
They wanted freedom. They wanted to be seen
economic
as human,
opportunity in a country they knew was advancing and wanted a piece of that
in their own neighborhood.
We
weren't even asking.
Well,
to be
they were
national.
They were a national organization.
They were national, but
they
we're
were
not
neighborhood
saying.
By neighborhood. Yeah,
no, we weren't saying we want to take over this neighborhood. We live in this neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
We want this neighborhood for y'all not to come in here and bust our heads for no reason.
Right. And it's the idea that if America could ever transcend fear and actually grow up and accept that this community of people is all of the people, for the people, by the people. Yeah. And I think that in many ways, African Americans and other minoritized populations, we know America better than it knows itself because we see both sides of it. We see where they lie.
Yeah.
We see where they cheat and they steal.
For those of us who become more and more successful, we know what it takes to
fold ourselves into the narrative
into that
assimilate.
Narrative. Yeah.
Because we know that we are a nation built on blood.
Yep.
Right? And terror.
Yep.
We sing of our victory at war in our anthem. The rocket's red glare is not freedom. It's not shaking hands.
It's blood.
It's destroying our oppressors.
Right.
And yet, when the Panthers use this language of trying to destroy the white oppressors, it's considered violent. And the idea that, it was very hard.
Unpatriotic and
unpatriotic, right? Yeah. And so the idea that these messages, that I'm watching this movie on the heels of Trump's acquittal from the January 6th insurrection. Here's my thing on that. I'm just going to take a second and then I'm going to move on.
No justice.
There's no justice. We all know rich white men get away with things.
We do.
And that whiteness will protect itself.
We do.
So if Ritch Hall, were to throw a party, invite hundreds of people to my party, spend all my time talking about how much I hate my neighbor, that I really wish someone would hang my neighbor.
And I'm
sorry. I also need to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. So all my employees need to show up.
Yeah.
So people that I have some kind of power over.
Yeah.
And who believe and trust me implicitly. Yeah. Maybe I'm a preacher and I have my flock at my house.
Yep.
And hundreds of people show up. I throw a party and I talk about how bad I want my neighbor. I hate my neighbor. And I say, we're going to march to my neighbor's house. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there with you. We need to fight because my neighbor is
and then you sit
running
over
the
here,
HOA.
But then they go over to the, exactly.
My neighbor is the head of the HOA and he won't let me build a pool. And this country would be my house would be so much better if I could have a pool and it's his fault. We should go over there and talk to him as a group. If they burn his house down or even break in and destroy some stuff, that's on me.
But you're not.
In America, I'd be considered responsible.
No.
I'd be considered responsible.
Violence and all that kind of stuff. No.
I would.
Not if you're Trump.
Not if I'm a certain type of white.
Yeah.
In this country.
Not if you're
that I'm protected.
White. Yeah.
From any responsibility to that.
Inciting violence is a crime.
I know it's a crime because every time Black Lives Matter people get a megaphone, they get yanked up on the streets.
They go to jail.
And they go to jail. And there's never been a conversation about how it'd be really hard for us to arrest all those people.
Right.
I remember the sweeps they did after the riots in Cincinnati where they literally had like hundreds of people overnight.
Yep.
Throughout Black Lives Matter summer. They were just rounding people up.
Figured it out.
When it's a certain group of people, there is never a question about what it will cost.
No.
What expenditure it will be.
They'll call in whoever they need to call in. Yep.
But suddenly, these white people storming the Capitol, there's no police presence. Beyond the regular Capitol Police, there's no military presence.
Y'all just let them go into
they just get to go home as if nothing went wrong.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything wrong.
And for those who are like arrested, it's like, oh, I need to have vegan dinners and
then when you watch a movie like Judas and the Black Messiah, you see them just trying to feed kids.
Yep.
And just trying to they did some protests, they did some marches.
They did. But,
they went upside their heads for them.
They did. Yep.
And it's the idea that we just wanted freedom from oppression, not.
Yeah.
I mean, and by America's own rhetoric, we have the right to want to burn the country down.
Well, honestly,
because the country has wronged us.
Yes.
And the country was built on revolution.
Yeah.
But to say that now it's treason and sedition.
Oh, no.
Only when we do it.
It's
if I kneel at a football game and don't stand for the anthem, I'm considered the problem.
If you are.
Even though before that rhetoric became a thing, we were going to hockey games. People were not standing for the anthem before Kaepernick became a thing.
At all.
They would just ignore it. It was the time to go get your chips.
Exactly.
Or talk amongst yourselves.
Because that's when the lines were low.
Right.
And you could get your hot dogs.
Because people were going to their seat.
Well, and
but now that Kaepernick was a thing, suddenly people are super patriots and they got to put a flag on everything.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's how we know, like, America is full of hypocrisy. It's not always the country it says it should be. And we're trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
And not face the consequences of our ignorance because we're often held to a standard.
We're trying to figure it out because we are always subjected to knowing what. Yeah, it's kind of like when you're, when you do people's taxes every year, you got to know all those laws.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It changes every year. All the time.
Because you'll be held accountable if you don't.
So as a black person, you kind of have to always know,
yeah,
this is good for you. Okay, this is not good for you. I mean, you
because
can speak out
held to a standard.
You're going to be
but
held
if you're
to
rich
a standard
enough
different.
that you can hire the right lawyers and have the right power.
Yeah.
You might be able to avoid it. If you're rich enough, they're not even going to audit you. If you're rich enough, we're talking about the IRS, they won't even audit you. They don't have the money to audit you.
Honestly, even then, if they don't like you, they'll make something happen. Right?
Unless you're rich. And then they might not audit you because they know you have too expensive lawyers.
I mean, they might in this world, right? But I mean, eventually Martin Luther King got murdered, right? Yeah. Malcolm X got murdered.
And that speaks to something too. America's memory is very short
It's very short.
We act as if the 60s was 100 years ago. Because it wasn't.
It's not as important to them.
It wasn't.
As it is to us.
For Black Americans, it's a trauma every time we see it.
It's a trauma every time.
Seeing George Floyd die reminds us that, oh yeah, they killed Malcolm and Martin. Yeah. Oh yeah, they killed Timothy Thomas.
In public.
Oh yeah, they killed Tamir Rice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Like it slots into some place for us every time.
We feel like
it's an unforgettable trauma.
Every single
we see ourselves in these people.
Breonna was like my cousin.
Breonna Taylor, yes.
Right. Like it
pulls out a deep trauma for us.
It does.
They are our sons, our daughters.
They're our sons, our daughters,
our children,
our cousins,
the children of this country.
Our children. And that that for me makes it even bigger.
They're taught to shrink, to be small.
They're our sisters. They're our
because
brothers.
Their inherent size.
Yeah.
Their greatness is a threat.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fact that we are so resilient.
Yeah.
Because if there's a section of this country that would prefer that we be small, that we be hidden.
Oh yeah.
That we not be a problem.
The devil only attacks what is considered a threat.
Yeah.
Right?
And we are the terror to our terrorizers.
Yes. Yes.
And I say this
can't
as a person
be great if we aren't also great.
Right. And I say this as a person who stands 6 feet tall. Right. Yeah. A person who comes around corners and startles people. Yeah. Unintentionally. I'm the nicest guy you'll ever meet.
No, there's
not I may get
honey bear.
Right. I may get a little angry in my rhetoric sometimes, but I'm never threatening.
No, you're never threatening. No. I mean, but honestly, every time someone who hasn't met you sees you, they're like, oh my God, he's a big guy.
Right. But I have to teach my sons.
Yeah. You have to teach your sons
to be just small enough to be jovial.
Got this dog who is, he's a pit bull terrier and he's blackity black, y'all.
And I got to teach him black guy rules. Like,
we have to teach him black guy rules. And he's just the softest. He doesn't know that he's a big dude.
A big black dog.
And he's a puppy and he just wants to be in your lap.
Right.
And sometimes he'll like snap at you a little bit or whatever.
Yeah.
But like, it's one of those, it's a constant reminder. It's like, hey, if we take you out on the street and somebody gets scared based on how you look.
Right.
Just based on how you look.
We have to teach our sons that. We have to teach our dog that.
We have to teach our sons that.
I've had to live a life
all that.
Behind that.
People see you like that all the time.
As a threat.
Even though you're not scary looking, but you're scary looking.
I'm scary looking just because I activate within them some primal fear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unintentional.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's this idea that, America has always treated me this way while I've just wanted to be human. And so by virtue of that, I've been able to see the real America.
Right.
Behind the curtain, behind the facade, for what it is.
Right.
For every hypocrisy that I can stomach.
Yep.
For every lie.
Yep.
Behind well-meaning smiles. Mm-hmm. To know that there are fangs. Mm-hmm. to know that it will bleed and leave a husk behind and walk away without consequence. That our history, American history, is full of white men who get away with grave atrocities. They can kill a man in his bed, kill a woman in her bed, and there will be no consequence. Zero.
Yeah.
We have learned. It's funny to me how easily I remember what the word acquittal means. It's not a word I use in day-to-day language.
No.
But every time I hear it, I go, oh, does that mean something happened? Oh, crap. That means nothing happened.
Nothing happened. And that was something that you learned like in junior high for us, right?
We learned that with Timothy Thomas. We learned
Timothy
that with
Thomas, Rodney King.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Acquitted.
They all got acquitted.
That typically in America, if you are in authority and you commit atrocities against a marginalized population in some way or another,
then it doesn't matter.
It is likely you will be acquitted.
Yep.
It is very rare that you will be indicted.
Yep.
There is research that says
it
is very unlikely that there will be any consequence, any change.
Yeah. And it's incredibly...
That being a person who commits these atrocities does not exclude you from becoming a fireman, a baker, a grocer, a policeman.
Or back to your job as an officer.
Or even the president.
Or even
you'll be given some benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
So I watched this YouTube video, not a YouTube video, an Instagram video of this young woman who she came home to find someone had broken into her apartment. A white man had broken into her apartment, and she had called the police. And she's just outside. She's freaking out, as anyone would, when you find a whole person inside your house eating your food, watching your TV. The police walk in and they start questioning, like, can you tell me what your apartment is? And the guy's using her name, like, I'm Shonda. This is my place. This white guy who's obviously, I don't know if it's drugs or whatever, but like, he's not all there.
He's high.
He's in a way that, you know.
He's not a full sound mind.
But the police officer, the white police officer is talking to him, giving him just having it like, so tell me what apartment you're in. We just need to figure this out. And she's like, get him out of my house. Get him out of my house.
They would have dragged your 6 foot.
Right.
Black butts.
But with him, it's like, let's figure this out. What's going on?
No.
Can you tell me what your apartment is?
About?
Can you tell me what your apartment? And the guy's like, I can't say, what's my apartment number? Because he can't remember because he's broken into the place. And she's outside screaming. He's like, I just need you to calm down. Like he shushes her. While
he's
she's
in
screaming,
my house eating my Fritos.
Get him out of my house.
Yeah.
This idea that there's, in America, under certain circumstances, if you have the complexion, you may commit a grave atrocity and get the benefit of the doubt. And I could tell you multiple times in my life where I wish I could just have had the benefit of the doubt.
Oh yeah. I was just reaching for my gloves.
I was reaching for my gloves, officer. I was human on the side of the road. I did not know.
I was cold.
I for a second forgot that you had a gun and I was a human who should not make any movements whatsoever.
I'm at a playground playing with a fake gun.
And I'm only going to get 2 seconds before you start firing.
I'm in a Walmart.
With a fake gun. Yeah.
Not even aimed at anybody.
Right. But if I'm a white man who's fully armed with an AK-47, I should be allowed to walk into a subway.
It's so egregious.
It is.
And it hurts my heart so bad because we do have children and, you just make those honest human mistakes,
Yeah, no.
I mean,
you learn your place. You learn your place very early. And if you don't, there are grave consequences.
You do. I mean, the idea that there are going to be these officers that are like, yeah, I mean, he did bust into your house, eat your Fritos, but...
I mean, you didn't have to act that way.
See? I mean, so there's always this part of me that's split, right? When I learned about history, I was always like... I always geared towards the Malcolm X versus the Martin
Luther King.
Yeah.
Because, if nothing else, the lie that America has told you is that they wish you were more like Martin. Well, but if America was talking to you, they would be Malcolm. America has been Malcolm to you. America has absolutely. America will come down very hard on you for making a mistake.
Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the things too. And that's probably a whole nother episode. It's like Malcolm and Martin weren't that much different.
No.
They fought that fight in different ways, but...
and when you look at what America was then, how could you not have wanted to just say, hey, if you cross me, I'll be armed.
Right.
That's the American way.
Right. So we watch Judas and the Messiah, and I'm like...
Yeah. Because we also know what that America was. I mean, for many people, they're not fully aware of what that America was. They're not fully aware of an America where you couldn't look a white man in the eye. America where a white man could just make a baseless accusation and you are treated as if
your baby gets killed.
America where you can't you're not even allowed to vote. Like they're going to do whatever they can to let you not do that. You can't get employment.
Yep.
In America where they could just put you under their employ. Like, hey, you work for me now.
Yeah. Period, boo.
Yeah.
You don't have any documentation. Oh, you had some, I'm going to burn it.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Because you got to
hey, can you do the ABCs real quick? And if I feel like you messed that letter up, you obviously can't read.
Clearly.
You don't deserve the right to vote. Like there are so many things that now sound absurd when it comes to racism.
But it happened.
En masse.
Yeah.
That it's just so hard to stomach, and America likes to forget. So that's why sometimes when you bring up cancel culture to me, I'm like, nah, America was canceling folks.
We've been canceling.
America been canceling black folks for 450 years.
Exactly. And we're still getting canceled on a regular basis.
We still show up every day.
We still show up,
and we still go out to try to get jobs. We still go out there and try and fight.
Yep.
We know America.
We commiserate with our oppressor in order to make some gains because we have no other choice.
And our oppressor will exclude us. It will exploit us. It will trample us. It will ignore us.
Yep.
And skip over our graves.
Yeah.
Leaving us dead, leaving us desolate.
Yeah. And honestly,
we, the children of America, know America.
We do.
It is a house of cards.
Yep.
A shaky and vulnerable, ephemeral myth.
Yeah.
We know it.
Yeah.
We've seen it in the eye.
We have. And you get to a certain age, you've seen it so many times that it just becomes a part of you.
And what's interesting about this whole COVID thing is like we've told America, like so many of the atrocities that have happened, we've been telling, black Americans have been saying the healthcare system is broken.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We know it because we've dealt with it.
We've dealt with it many times.
And no one wanted to fix it.
No one wanted to fix it. And let me tell you what, as a person who worked in IT as a part of a company that handled prescriptions and things like that, oh my gosh, the things that you see behind the scenes, it's just...
So the idea that America will have been warned. America will choke and it'll be on its own hubris.
It will.
And America will not listen because it never does. It never stops to listen.
No.
And we will suffer. Us marginalized people near the bottom will suffer.
We definitely
the most.
will suffer. And you know, honestly, I mean, shows like American Greed would never survive if there wasn't the ability to sort of constantly film things like this, right? Because
we know it's never about evidence. It's never about truth.
No.
Racism, by and of itself, is an illogical and insane fantasy.
Yep.
We know it.
It's
absurd.
It's
a
absurd.
farce.
It's intangible. It's one of those things that they make it hard to prove in a court of law, which is a lot of times
because it's such a soft power.
It is.
And yet it can command so much.
It commands all the things.
It's so baked in to the country.
How did the country even come to this point without it? Right?
Yeah. And it will kill us all one day. In many ways, it's part of what has allowed us to get so caught up in this current plague. The inability to see past.
Yeah. Because even though we thought we had gotten so far, you get somebody that was 45 as president, and it brings up all
apathetic to the normal people.
Yeah.
And so unable to really mobilize to deal with the problem.
Up all of that stuff that's always been there.
Yep.
And so many people are like,
Churn it up.
This is not our America. No, it's always been our America.
This has always been your America.
They just never felt comfortable enough to jump out about it. You know?
Right. And so it's hard to watch that movie and not come away with so many thoughts and feelings about present day America, which is one of the reasons that made it so powerful. It's like, oh, no. This is not too far from now.
It's still relevant. And that was the thing, because
if he had been allowed to kind of bring some things together, if America had actually gotten behind some of these causes and actually helped black people out, we wouldn't have been so vulnerable.
Oh, yeah. So this movie happened in the 60s.
Yeah.
And it's 2020 now.
He was only 21 years old, Fred Hampton.
Only 21 when they murdered him.
Mm-hmm.
And
they murdered him.
They absolutely murdered him. And
the Panthers fired one shot. They fired 97.
97.
So that means you just lit the place up.
Yeah. And
not a single cop faced a single charge.
Right.
It took 12 years for the family to get any recompense.
To get any money.
They got $1 million for their trouble after 12 years of fighting a civil case.
And what was so heartbreaking about it was like they fired 90 shots, and all I could think of was like the Breonna Taylors who were asleep in their bed, who heard some banging at their door.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And Fred Hampton, who was drugged to go to sleep.
And about to go back to jail, by the way.
He was about to go back to jail for another 5 years.
Over stealing some ice cream.
Over stealing $70 worth of ice cream.
They're going to try to put him in jail for 5 years. He lost his appeal.
The mother of his
children. But they didn't want him. And so they made a martyr out of him instead of.
They didn't want his influence over people.
To continue.
Same as Malcolm, same as Martin.
Right.
Right. They're like these
at a time in America when
they have too much influence.
Saying the wrong thing, bringing people together would get you killed.
Yep.
If you had the wrong complexion.
Yep.
Or if you had the right one. I mean, it didn't matter.
They
killed that Irish president too.
Oh yeah.
They killed Kennedy.
Yeah.
And it's funny to say they, because, I'm once again speaking to the,
there's this quote unquote they, right?
The mythological they.
Yeah.
But I mean, there were those in power who felt the need.
In power who said this is not.
And even if it wasn't like the people in power, like, okay, maybe J. Edgar Hoover himself didn't kill some of the civil rights revolutionaries, but they definitely didn't protect.
They didn't protect
Americans.
Okay, so it happened.
Who in some ways are trying to make America claw its way to be better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who are trying to force America to face itself. And rather than do that, America would rather murder.
It's like bury it. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And so I feel like now is a good opportunity for America to really face itself.
Yeah.
And decide what country it wants to be. Yeah. Is it going to be the country that allows the marginalized to die?
Or are we going to fight against this and be better?
And I am hopeful
better
that, with a future.
Yeah.
And I don't 100% trust any politician, to be perfectly honest. And I don't even think it's fully their job. I mean, one of the things about Barack Obama was he didn't expect to be the sole person.
He had the grassroots.
He hoped that if he could just give people some lift, that they would pull themselves up.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, everybody kind of sat back and was like, oh, okay, we've arrived. Post-racial president,
That's
everybody. Everything's better.
Not true.
But in reality, it just allowed the problem to fester. And it's why we got into the situation we got with 45. Is that people felt too marginalized. They felt like there are people who feel the country moves too fast and too far. And they hope to return it to what they consider traditional values, which traditionally means excluding people that look like me and my children.
Yeah.
The children of America.
Yeah.
And so
those children in cages and whatnot.
It's definitely one of those, I'm going to make my kids watch it, movies.
Yeah.
When they're a little bit older. I don't want to do this to them now. No. It's always a problem when you're trying to raise children. It's like, when do I expose you to the atrocities of what America really is and what it will do to you? I don't want to traumatize you too early, but I gotta prepare you.
I remember being horrified.
Yeah.
I mean, and I had seen all of the Martin Luther King and stuff like that, but when I found out that he was asleep and they had just shot up his house,
right,
I was horrified by it. I was a little bit older than Ra,
right,
but then I got on that path of wow,
this can't happen.
The Marcus Garveys, the Eldridge Cleavers, the the people exactly, all the people that were against this kind of stuff and that were brave enough to say, if I die, this is how exactly. I'm gonna die on my feet and not on my knees. I'm not on my knees. Exactly.
Throw me in the ocean.
The Killmongers,
my ancestors.
Exactly.
Who said death is better than bondage.
Death is better than bondage. Yeah. So I mean that's
one of the reasons that line hits so hard, because it's in America. We know it. Inherently, it taps into something we already know.
If you're paying attention at all,
it
hits you.
I mean, and that's the sad part, is that America is a lullaby.
Yeah.
That has lulled so many people to sleep, and they are unable to really see what this country has done to us and to people that look like me, and by virtue of that, the poison it has administered itself.
Yeah. Because if you're not affected by it,
affects you too. You think you're not affected by it.
You think you're not affected by it.
But the problem with a cancer, racism is a cancer.
Mm-hmm. It starts small, but then it gets big.
It destroys the body.
It does.
And America can never say it didn't have the opportunity to resolve the issue.
Before
it's ignored it.
Big. Yeah.
And it continues to ignore it, and it continues to try to act as if it's the greatest country in the world and it's above reproach.
Well, and I mean, I think that's the thing about all of these riots and stuff like that. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe.
Because they want to believe the lullaby.
LA riots and the Chicago fire and the Cincinnati riots.
Chicago riots, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but come on.
Yeah, the Chicago fire.
So none of these moments, that was an actual fire. Yeah. But I mean,
Cincinnati's had a lot of riots. Cincinnati used to be a rioting town.
Yeah. I mean, the history of a lot of cities,
I mean, to become a civilization, humanity had to do a lot of fighting amongst itself.
Yeah, because you needed to
early days of
establish
America,
what we consider right and wrong, right?
In the early days of the modern century, there was a lot of people just getting together with some sticks and clubs and beating up some people. And we act like that we are so far removed from that. But I mean, if January 6th showed us nothing else, we are not. There's a certain part of America that is not. And if given carte blanche. And what's annoying to me is that they did that. And the people who will face the most consequences for it will be the next time black people march.
Absolutely.
In the Capitol. They will get the brunt of what those people should have
BLM will try to go up to Washington, D.C. They let Duck Dynasty jump over the walls, get into the offices and take people's mail with little to no repercussions. But the next time Black Lives Matter wants to march or anything like that, they're going to have, and maybe
a full police presence and military force.
Yep. Well, like they did before.
Because we know they can do that. And we know that there are times where they don't. And that just looks so hypocritical.
Suspect.
Yeah.
And they don't care that it looks suspect.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
So Judas and the Black Messiah, highest recommendation to watch. It's such an amazing
movie.
Lakeith Stanfield does an amazing job.
He does a great job.
There are times where he's just acting with his eyes and you feel so much for him.
You feel this conflict that he has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. And I highly recommend it. He even said he needed therapy after it was over because, embodying that role of William O'Neill, a guy who was betraying someone who treated him as a friend, who supported him.
And he was a Black Panther even after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, by Black Panther, he still remained an informant for years after.
Right. But I mean, that's,
And then ultimately, the real William O'Neill killed himself.
He did.
He did an interview for Eyes on the Prize. And then with the day the interview came out, murdered himself.
Same day.
Ran into traffic.
He ran into traffic and got hit by a car.
Yeah.
And it was considered a suicide. And actually, when you read how it happened, you're like, oh, yeah, he was just.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you really pay attention to that interview, I don't know if you noticed, you could tell he was sort of. And you don't have other interviews to say what he would be like in an interview, but you could kind of see he was just like, I'm going to say this and then I'm it. That's it. There's a point when people, and of course I'm a lay person, but there's a point when people have decided they're going to commit suicide where they are more relaxed than they've been in a long time. They're very resolute. They're very, I wouldn't say happy, but different than they've been in a while.
Yeah.
He stated his facts and then that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And his uncle, he chased him out of the house and went into, it was a tragic situation, but fall down that rabbit hole. It was tough to read about, but interesting at the same time. But you understand, you got this 21-year-old kid who's an FBI informant for the Black Panther Party. All these kids are 19, 20, 21, 22 years old.
Yeah.
You imagine yourself at that age dealing with police brutality, deciding to take a stand on anything. Like how many 20-year-olds, are taking a stand in such a strong way. Yeah. It's a lot to consider. I was just kind of going to school and trying to find a boy to take me to a dance, But, these kids were dedicated. They were feeding the other kids on Saturdays. They were really kind of a part of their community, developing a community. They were. And one of the things that makes it even more tragic is like the way that, cities often give up on their inner cities. Yeah. And they allow them to fester. They let them to die. Yeah. And it's like these people were really trying to mobilize something. Yeah. And the downside of that disorganization, dismantling of those organizations
is that then the apathy and malaise just continues to grow, and you lose a generation of children born into these areas, because it's not like they stop being born there. They just stop being cared for in any way.
Right. And then you wonder why they're not.
And you wonder why you can't trust your city. Like you wonder why you go into the 90s.
You wonder why these
with
kids
so much
grow up
drugs
to be,
and all that.
Violent and all this other kind of stuff. Yeah.
The people who were trying to build something were removed and taken out. And
and there's a class of kids who just grew up not caring because no one cared for them.
Right.
Yeah.
So Judas and the Black Messiah, highest recommendation. It led to a really good conversation with us.
Absolutely a great
movie. Definitely appreciated the movie.
HBO Max.
Shout out to them for making it. One of those, I don't know, one of those, how did they even get to make a movie like this?
Yeah.
I was feeling that like midway through it. Like, how did they get away with this? Like, this should not be.
Yeah.
Once again, it's in the realm of films that we were told you just couldn't make.
Yeah. I mean, we're 40 something years old, and I've never seen a movie about Fred Hampton that was so on point.
Yeah.
Like that.
That just felt real and felt like you could care for him, and that he was a person and not a myth and not a.
Yeah. And now let's also note that Fred Hampton Jr. and his mother were a part of
involved in the making of the movie, the
making of the movie,
and gave their blessing. Yeah,
they did, and that I think there were so many things that they were a part of that really made the movie, right? That made it accurate, that made it real, that really kind of brought the points home, and so that was really good to see, and it's something that if you didn't know the story, you really started digging in to see the backstory, basically.
Yeah.
And so definitely recommend. Great movie. Listen, like I said, we watched it late on a Saturday night. It was Valentine's, and we did all the, we had the steak and everything else going, and I stayed awake for the entire movie, which is big for me.
Yeah, yeah. Normally she'd have passed right out.
Normally I would have passed right out. I had my eye mask on, and I was like, oh no, I got to see the rest of this. Yeah. No, it's good. It's great.
Highly recommend it. If
highly
you can,
recommend
if you got the HBO Max, watch it.
Yeah.
Or wait till it's not going to be on HBO Max forever. It will come to other streaming services very soon.
It will.
You can buy it.
Yeah.
If you don't have the HBO Max.
I mean, it's worth buying.
But it is worth buying. Yeah.
Definitely
it's a really
worth
good movie.
Buying. Yeah.
There's a part of me that wants to watch it again, but it's definitely not one of those movies I think I can watch a bunch of times.
It's kind of like Hotel Rwanda.
Yeah.
Where you watch it and you're like, oh.
This is too heavy.
This is really heavy.
In part because it's real, and that there were consequences to this. That it struck a movement down in its infancy.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to feel the effects of that as a black person.
And there was a part of the movie where we're both like, we know how this is going to end.
Yeah. And it's so early in. Here. Can I sit through this tragedy?
Can I sit through
and live with the trauma
how
of it
this ends
and not be re-traumatized by it?
Yeah.
But I definitely think it's definitely like, oh no, white people should have to watch this and
absolutely
with their eyes open and recognizing that this is what their legacy has wrought. That the American legacy has brought this to your door, and that until you deal with this will always
this is always going to be a thing.
The story of who and what America is.
Yeah. The fact that we still have the Breonna Taylors of the world, right?
Yeah, shot in their homes,
in her home while she slept, right, with her boyfriend who wasn't even the guy they were looking for.
Nobody that they were looking for was actually in the building.
Yeah.
Nobody of consequence.
I mean, and it's a different circumstance, of course, but they had an FBI
but still born out of
agent.
this apathy towards a human condition, towards a person's
because
humanity.
they didn't care if they killed Fred Hampton's pregnant girlfriend.
They didn't care
at all.
She was just one of them.
They said,
in that same way that Breonna Taylor was lumped into. She had dated a drug dealer at some point in her past.
And they're like, okay, well, it's carnage. Yeah, right.
You somehow brought this on yourself. And in America, if you commit the right crime,
they won't care.
If you're associated with these crimes that they've considered dehuman,
if you're a certain color.
Which is why we know with us it was the war on drugs when it was cocaine, but now that it's not heroin but meth and opioids, it's what are we going to do? How are we going to get more money into mental health?
Need so much help.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
when
it's
crack
us
for black folks, that's a whole different
story. There was no money for that. There was no support for that.
Put them in jail and get them out of here. Yeah.
Right. That these things are treated differently. And that's all we really want. Just like acknowledge that things are being treated differently. That there's a double standard for Black Americans. There's definitely a double standard.
And just, we're human.
And there's a ton of research to back it up. So this is not conjecture. This is not anecdotal.
No, we're not making this stuff
This is
up.
researched.
Absolutely.
We have many anecdotal experiences that can support the research.
Right. And I think, honestly, outside of the research, the anecdotal experiences that we've had personally
really bring it home for us. And if you actually cared about us and trusted our opinions on our lives that we've lived,
then it would be enough for you too.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't get a group of our friends together and not have similar experiences, right?
Right. And yet,
we're not speaking
white
out
America
of turn
often
here.
acts as if these experiences don't exist. The words I'm saying don't exist. That people can look me in the eye, call me a friend, and ignore my
and then
experience.
still say that did
I just
not
don't believe
happen to you.
systematic racism is a
I'm
thing.
telling
And
you
I believe
that
if
it
you did it,
does.
I mean, if you found yourself in that situation, there must have been something you did.
Right.
Because for me to have to examine myself and my environment and my experience in any real way, it's just too uncomfortable. It's just too much ambiguity for me to hold on to. So I'm instead going to blame you. I'm going to say it's something characterological in you that caused this outcome and not anything about me or the system that I believe in so rigidly.
Yeah. I mean, and that's so incredibly hurtful for those of us who
try to care about people who don't at a baseline see us or care about us in that same way. That's hard.
If you care about me, you care about my experiences.
Right.
And you care about my perspective on said experiences.
Right.
And these aren't one-offs.
No.
These aren't. I'm 40. We're 40 something years old.
Right.
These are multiple experiences.
Multiple times it's happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We aren't just making this stuff up. Y'all.
We're not. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. But we definitely recommend you see
Judas and the Messiah.
Judas and the Black Messiah.
Yep.
And so
you know what the music means.
You know what the music means. Our time is up.
I say good day, sir.
I say good day. The Hallspace Podcast is brought to you by Hall Productions, LLC. Show notes and credits can be found at our webpage, thehallspacepodcast.wordpress.com. Any questions, comments, or concerns can be sent to us at thehallspacepodcast@gmail.com. The show is written by Dagger Penn Davis. Music is curated by DJ Cabal. The show is produced by Chuck Jones and recorded at Slash and Trash Studios. If you like what you hear and you want to hear more, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I hope you all have a good week. So let me tell you about Anchor Podcast. It's the podcasting service that I use. Anchor.fm is the easiest way to make a podcast, and there are many different reasons why, but foremost is it's free. So you don't need to go out and buy a whole bunch of equipment. If you have a phone or a computer and a microphone, you can record and edit your podcast right on your phone or computer. So that's one major benefit, as well as the fact that they'll distribute your podcast to several different podcasting sites for you. Not only can your podcast be found on Anchor, it can also be found on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast as well. So you don't have to worry about going to all those different sites and setting yourself up. They'll do it for you. You can also make some money on your podcast. Say you have a podcast that only 5 people listen to on a regular basis. They don't limit you on how many subscribers you have to have in order to be able to make a little bit of change for your podcast to keep yourself going. So pretty much everything you need to start a podcast can be found at Anchor.fm. So go download the app either in the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store, or go to Anchor.fm to get started. And I guarantee you, it'll make things so much easier for you, like it has for me. House Hall. We rise brilliantly.